For the next few hours, we are safe with the topic of education and the future of education. So I'm sure we all agree that the bright future depends on good education. So Taavet and I will kick this panel off by Estonian example. A recent study conducted by Tartu University, which hasn't even been released yet, and they conducted a survey among middle school and high school students in Estonia, and it revealed that 37% of Estonian school kids see their future in IT. Do you see that as a big number, or should we be worried?
I think it's a good number. I mean, 1/3 of people want to go study or work in IT. So I think it's really promising, and especially if you think about, IT is actually much more than just programming. I mean, IT is going everywhere. So seeing that a sort of people want to do it, I think it's a great result. I'd love to know what the same number is in different countries around the world.
They claim that Estonia ranks among the highest in the OECD countries.
Yoo-hoo.
So we're actually doing quite well. And what you pointed out, that kids do see IT mostly as programming, so they would love to see a lot more sort of gamification elements, seeing more technology used in the classroom, which again, we're sort of putting a huge load on the teachers there. So how can we relieve that load?
When I was speaking to a friend who moved from Estonia to Singapore, and she was talking about how in Singapore they have a subject called IT or whatever it's called, but that actually is involved with the rest of curriculum. So if they're learning something in physics at the time, then the IT class will help with that. Maybe another time they're learning how to make a movie in that class. So I guess there is so much more richness around it, and I think it is a challenge to integrate it. And I think that's something where we need to think about how we can help the Estonian system and how we can help teachers who are, unfortunately overloaded and so on. It's one of the areas that with the education funds that we launched last year, we're definitely thinking about, like, how can we help promote the different programs that are doing this.
And again, another aspect that came out of this survey was that anything that comes from school, kids see as boring. If the teacher thought of this program, it must be not challenging enough. So what can we do there to make it more appealing for the students, who sometimes are much more savvy in using technology than the teachers?
I think we also need to think about how can we involve parents, so how can we get parents to help with this. And I think then, something which is coming from the study is that students are actually really keen to learn from the professional as well. So, some things that we'll definitely be thinking about in TransferWise context, and also others hopefully joining is how can we get kids to come to see how we're actually doing things, and meet the leaders like Markus Willig from Bolt and so on, and get to see these people who are actually building the companies. And I think that's something which seems to be important.
That's a good thing you pointed out, that especially for boys in the middle school age, apparently the personal role models are very influential. So again, obviously we do not, or the entrepreneurs don't have that capacity to work one-on-one with a middle school student, but how can we scale this or make it more scalable?
Yeah, kind of even thinking back, and I'm pretty sure that people like Bill Gates were idols to me when I was growing up. I can't think of specifically, but I can definitely, knowing that Microsoft is a big thing in the early 90s, it was definitely. I mean, something we started discussing very briefly already is like, how can we design some kind of a program where the best students get to be invited to come to the best companies to see. So to see and meet the teams, and get to meet the people running the company. So we'll be thinking about this as we process through the results of the research.
Okay, because currently Estonia is also leading another chart, which is the number of first-year dropouts in the IT specialties in university. And you yourself are one of those students, or you used to be one of them. So what happened, and why did you drop out?
The embarrassment of my family. So I dropped out for a very practical reason. I was busy building Skype, and that seemed so much more exciting than going to Tallinn Technical University at the time, where, you know, unfortunately the teacher was still showing not slides, but what was the printouts, the plastic printouts. Clear.
In Estonian, I don't even know the word in English.
Still using Cs from the Middle Ages. So, and you know, I would actually say, you know, in my case, it's probably the right choice to do. But I would say that anyone who can jump on a rocket ship should do that, and that's a much better education than what you get in school. However, the challenge is that it's very hard to spot the rocket ships before they take off. So therefore, most people probably will fail in that, and they'll probably build a better base for themselves being in school. You know, if you think about the Estonian rocket ships, I mean, we had what, Skype, TransferWise, Taxify. You know, maybe, I don't know, Verif is going to be the next. So we have 3 over the past 15 years. So it's pretty hard to spot them. So I think, you know, if you can spot one, and if you're offered a seat, you should take it. But otherwise, probably it makes sense to study a bit, you know, slightly maybe more condensed. And I'm glad that nowadays university is 3 years, not 4 as it used to be back when I tried to go to school.
Okay, so you would encourage to become dropouts if there's a good reason.
If there's a rocket ship.
But again, being a dropout, so what we've seen, again, this study also supports that, is that boys somehow manage to get that on a seat on this rocket ship, whereas the girls sort of drop off at a certain age, and usually it happens in the 4th or 6th grade. So how can we help the girls? Do you believe in the fact that we should have like separate classes for girls, just to keep them interested?
I would maybe rather interpret this in a different way. I think kind of overall it seems that all of this kind of integrating STEAM and teaching people about IT in the broader sense should be done much earlier. Like, you cannot leave this to high school. So I think it's just overall we need to think about how do we do it much earlier. And then even in Estonia there is a lot of great initiatives. You know, if we like, I think even you know, the boys and girls thing is what Taavet is doing, which I think used to be called, was focused on girls, but now I think one of the schools they are trialing actually has 2 groups, a boy and a girl group. So I don't think we should be discriminating and doing it only for girls. I should do it for everyone, and definitely do it at an earlier age than later. You know, I think also learning these skills earlier on, I think, will enable these people to integrate these skills themselves into the next curriculums and other things they're doing. You know. I would love my kids to learn how to edit a movie when they are 7 years old, so when they learn to skateboard when they're 9, they will make their own skateboard movies.
So combining different subjects and integrating more gamification elements into the classroom, do you see that as the key element? Seems
like the right thing.
Okay, and now we will actually hear more stories from experiments from elsewhere. And Taavet is available for you in the Q&A session later in the TransferWise area. So in 45 minutes, you'll be there.
Yes.
Okay, so for now, we thank Taavet.
Aitäh, Ede. You want to stay here?
And we are moving on, as I mentioned, good examples from other countries. So we actually, quite nicely, we have all good neighbors here. Starting off with a good example from Russia. And Natalia Simonenko is the founder and CEO of Oyster, which is located in Moscow. And it actually sounds very similar to several things we are doing in Estonia, as Hyppelaud, which I am running, also sounds very similar. But their target group is 4 to 12-year-old kids, and they combine both physical and online materials and introduce the kids to the jobs of the future. And then after Natalia, the stage will be occupied by Sanna Reponen, who's the CTO of Mehackit, which is an initiative coming from Helsinki. So we're moving across the bay to our northern neighbors. And they started 5 years ago, and the again, as we also discussed with Taavet, how could we possibly make programming more entertaining for the kids, and how can we, or how can they integrate more arts into programming? So we'll hear about their experience, and now they've also moved on to other countries from Finland. And we will finish this panel with Saku Tuominen, who's the founder and creative director of 100, the ED with the capital letters, also coming from Helsinki, which comes from the, when our good neighbors turned 100 years old, then this initiative was initiated with 100 education projects from Finland, and now it's open, it's a global initiative, and they collect 100 ideas each year, which will later be turned into free source materials for everybody to use. So we will start with Natalia, please.
Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Natalia Simonenko. I'm an entrepreneur. For many years I was busy doing multimedia software in my company called Movavi, and a few years back I switched to STEAM education, and we opened a few IT schools in Siberia teaching kids robotics and programming and design. And my new venture, Oyster, is a company based in Moscow. We create physical products for kids aged 4 to 10, sometimes to 12, to show them the world of STEAM professions. And today I want to share with you some of our experience and the questions and the challenges that we have along the way. So what is Oyster? Oyster is educational kits with hands-on experiments about different STEAM professions. Right now we have set about human medicine, veterinary medicine, and archaeology and scientist, bioengineer, working on genetics, and and so on. Right now we have them available only in Russia and sell them online and in retail, and planning to launch it very soon in the United States, now in the process of localizing and certifying the products. So why we do STEAM education through professions? Why we choose this approach? Well, first of all, there's some very important and interesting studies that kids should learn STEAM skills early on, because if they don't express interest in STEAM before the age of 10 years old, then probably they will not express them further, right? It's also recommended by British Career Institute, for example, to begin vocational education as early as age 7, when kids can make connection between what they want to be when they grow up and the skills and knowledge required to be a successful professional. And another very interesting study by the Education and Employers Foundation was that they asked 20,000 students aged 7 to 11 to draw their dream job, and they found out that disproportionate number of kids, they dream of professions like football player or actor or photographer or a blogger, so the professions that probably will be not relevant to economics and society when they grow up. As a society, probably we don't need that many professional soccer players or actors. So there is possibility that those kids will not spend enough time and effort to the STEAM skills to develop them and to be successful in the future. So the idea of Oyster is to show them the beauty of STEAM professions, so they can find a motivation and interest to be a bioengineer or a neurosurgeon, for example, and develop STEAM skills following this dream. But most important thing is that playing a profession is fun, and our own research and in-depth reviews, interviews with parents show that the main motivator for parents to choose a school or activities or even toys for their kids is the desire to see their kids as successful professionals in the future. And kids just love playing grown-ups and pretending to be a professional superhero, and then in this case, it's not learning, it's just a game. So how do we create our Oyster kits? Every set is created by educational experts together with the professional in the field, so we make sure that all tasks are not only interesting and fun for kids, but they make sense from a professional point of view. And every set, every experiment is tested by our small beta testers, the kids, again to make sure that all tasks are very interesting. Every Oyster kit contains a few important things. The real-world experiment. So as we are strong believers that learning by doing is the best way to understand things, to understand how the world is working. So the hands-on experiments and projects are at the core of our product. But Oyster is not only STEAM experiments. It's actually a role-playing game, and we have attributes of the profession, like a doctor costume or professional stethoscope, and all tasks are included in the role-playing game, like a game quest. By completing, a child gets a professional diploma. So they don't have a feeling that they learn something or they just do different tasks. It's a game quest, and it's just a lot of fun. And we put a lot of additional information to every kit. Like in doctor set, there is information on different types of doctor and the basics of human anatomy, and what is immune system, and the blood cell structure, and so on. And of course, for new generation, which are digital natives born with a smartphone in a hand, we use a lot of digital content. We experiment a lot with virtual reality and augmented reality, so kids can explore more using modern technologies. For example, they can go to a virtual trip to the Eastern Island to see the excavations, or they can travel inside a human body to understand better the important internal organs. And also we have online tests, so we have a feedback from kids, what they understood from the materials, what they liked, what they didn't like. But since we work a lot with the professions, it's very important for us to understand how the world of professions will change. Since we know that approximately 50% of today's professions will disappear, what kind of professions should we teach our kids? I read that here in Estonia, you already tested AI in the court. Like a robot judge can make decisions on the simple cases. So probably, I mean, that's amazing. Even the lawyer profession probably will disappear. We know that average life expectancy will increase by 4 to 6 years and will be around 85 years in developed countries, which means that we're going to work for a longer time. And probably we have to reset our working skills 8 to 10 times during our working life. Up to 50% of all work in 2030 will be performed by freelancers. So the new world is going to be very different from what we know now. And the question for us is how to better prepare our kids for this new world. We all talk about STEAM jobs and STEAM careers as probably the answer to this question. And many schools and even countries, they say STEAM education now is the main focus. It's the most important thing. But the whole STEAM category is very broad. And it's not equal for science, for example, and technology. If we talk about the employment growth, there is a study by University of Washington, and the forecast that by 2024, the 73% of all employment growth will be in technology, and specifically in computer science, while in biology and physics, only 3%. And even today, only 20% of graduates from physics and life science, they work under their specialty, and the rest doing something else, or retrain themselves again for the computer science. So when we talk about employment growth in STEAM, should we talk about technology only? So you think probably we should add coding skills to every profession, because everybody will need to code. Then if we think about the future of computing or coding, the experts in AI say that the computers of the future will be very different from what we know now. And maybe the coding skills will not be relevant, because the working of machines will be more based on quantum laws and human brain. And then the knowledge of computer language will be not relevant, at least for what's going on now. And the creative professions, again, they meet the challenges from AI. So the question is, for us, and I'd love to discuss it with you, what specifically STEAM careers are the careers of the future, and what should we teach our kids to prepare them for this new world? If you look at the employability skills by the World Economic Forum, all soft skills. There is no hard skills on this list. And the very concept of profession will change. We are going to make a transition from professional CV to a project portfolio of projects small and big, from full-time job and permanent employment to part-time job and freelance, from single source of income like a salary to multiple income sources, including your salary and monetization of your social network profile and your assets and real estate and so on. So how to prepare our kids for this new future? When we think about it, we think three important things has to be done. And first, since nobody can predict how exactly the world will be different, how it will change, the ability to change and to learn very fast and to keep the psychological balance in front of the new circumstances probably is the main and most difficult thing to learn. And for that, at Oyster, we're trying to get children exposed to many different roles and professions, to show them that, you know, one day you can do this, and another day you can do this. So they get more flexible. They have ideas that they can do a lot of things. Multidisciplinarity. We do believe that studying literature and philosophy and psychology, sociology is as important as study math and computer science. Because the world is multidisciplinary. And every kid, every task is real world based and is multidisciplinary by nature. And collaboration, because we believe that the future belongs not to the smartest or to the strongest, but those people who knows how to interact with each other and with the machines to create the new world. So in every set, we encourage kids to work together with their friends or their siblings to complete the projects. And I think the world is our oyster. We are ready to observe the changes and to change with the world. So our kids are able and ready to change and change this world. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks for food for thought from Natalia and from Ede and Taavet. There's a lot to think about. My name is Sanna Reponen. I'm from Mehackit, which is a Finland-based company which helps teachers teach 11 to 19-year-olds programming as a creative practice. Could you change the slides, please? And for those who are not specifically from education, well, science, technology, engineering, art, and math are those letters that combine into STEAM. And well, when it works, it really is a strong bridge between education and the real world. And Mehackit, well, our business is the A in STEAM, which is art and creativity. And mind you, we don't consider art and creativity as decoration or something that you sprinkle on top in the end, or something that will keep the non-technical students busy. No, we see art and creativity as the groundwork for how things are done, and it's more of a process for building new knowledge in a creative way. Sometimes you hear that programming is called the new literacy. I think that's a bit bold, and we already heard how Natalia predicted that maybe programming will not be as it is seen today. It might change in the future quite radically. You could call programming a literacy, one specifically digital literacy among many others, like understanding visual communication in a networked world, or data literacy. And literacies tend to be taught at school. And currently we're at a place where it's often seen that programming should be taught by those who are early adopters or tech-savvy teachers. So those people are fit for the task. But if you accept the notion of programming as a literacy, well, reading and writing are not taught by only those teachers who have dazzling writing skills themselves. Reading and writing are taught by all educators, pretty much, from the viewpoint of their subject or their specialty. And so it should be with programming as well. You probably have met and worked with early adopters. Maybe you are one or have one at home. Early adopters are awesome, and they're very enthusiastic, and that's contagious with their enthusiasm. But there's often a problem with early adopters that they don't necessarily have experience on being uncertain with technology or even being afraid of technology. And that's very common, and we need to be able to tackle that in education somehow as well. So it's important that all kinds of teachers with different backgrounds can find their own angle into teaching programming as well, as a tool, as a creative process from the point of view of their own subject. And creativity can help with this. What about young people then? We know that, well, pretty much all young people, as adults as well, accept the idea that technology will have a bigger role in our lives in the future. But if you ask whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, then the answers will vary quite a lot. And that could mean many things. But what we can't have is a huge chunk of young people growing up uncertain and detached from how technology works. Because these are the people, like we heard from Natalia's speech, these are the people who will decide the direction of technology. So we really need everybody's input. It's not only a question of having skilled workforce. We need a lot of ideas, needs, interests that modern technology in the future must address. So creativity is a way to fulfill a fundamental right of young people. They have a right to make things they care about with technology. And that will help them build the vocabulary and the confidence to really tell what the direction of technology should be. So what does creative work look like from Mehackit point of view? We have 3 programming tracks. We work with visual arts, we work with music. I wish I could have added some music to the presentation. And we work with creative electronics. You see a couple of examples of work. Over there on the left, there's a poem generator, which combines open materials from the Metropolitan Museum's collections. And it's beautifully combined with the, look out, national epic of Finland, which is called Kalevala. And on the right, you see an owl cam, which is a CCTV prototype for zoos. And who made these projects? Well, they were made on an online training for educators, for teachers from primary and secondary schools. And these teachers, most of them on this online training, had no or very little experience in programming before they took the course. But from the very first exercise on, they were able to start applying what they've learned, no matter how little it was. And also, from the very beginning, we expect the teachers in this training to start thinking about how they are going to apply these things in their own work from the point of view of their own subject or specialty. Online teacher training does not need to be linear. It looks a bit linear in the graph, but it doesn't have to be. So it's actually a good practice if you train a little, teach a little, train a little, teach a little, if you're a teacher acting in profession. What we encourage the students and educators do first is go through a basic module of the basics of a content track or a programming track. And we try to make it as condensed as possible. So the service that we have created is called Mehackit Atelier, and it's a combination of pedagogical materials and carefully paced student material. So the basic module will help you try out your own ideas and share your ideas with others, and also learn to troubleshoot, very important. And of course, you will learn key concepts of programming at the same time as well. But the real prize of this module are project modules. Students can choose projects according to their own interests, or educators can introduce projects depending on the curriculum needs that they need to fulfill. Such a model did not land from space to Mehackit. We have done hundreds of courses and workshops in secondary schools in Finland and outside Finland. And we have also a lot of experience from live teacher training. So currently we are moving all the best learnings from these live trainings and live courses into our online service. The underlying learning model is pretty loose. We're not making a cake recipe here. Everybody who's ever made a cake knows that, well, if you make a mistake, you will make people very unhappy. But if you're working on a maker project, if you make a mistake, that's actually really cool, because such glitches are those moments when you have a chance to use those mistakes as material and build something new. So our learning model is based on maker culture pretty heavily, and also open source culture. You can start from any point, actually, but a very natural point to start learning is when you're having free-form fun, when you're experimenting without pressure. But when you're having fun while learning, it doesn't mean that you don't care about what you're doing or you don't take it seriously. It's quite the opposite, because fun is very personal. We all know we don't laugh at the same things. And when you're having fun while learning, you tend to remember what you've learned for quite a long while. The observe and discover phase of the learning model is successful when it helps combine skills from different areas of knowledge to programming. For example, if you're good at making origami, why not take paper origami and combine it with programmable electronics, like programmable LEDs, and make a light installation out of it? Or if you're, for some reason, very, very interested in 1980s rap lyrics, you can use that as a data input for a visual piece of art. So material is not only something tangible, it can be observations, like any observations you make in your built environment or the nature. Hacking sounds controversial to some, but what we want to emphasize is that the cornerstone of modern digital communities is sharing and contributing. A coder hardly ever starts coding from line 1, but we always build on somebody else's work. And it's only right if you embrace that and also give back to the community whenever you can. So this is what it could look like inside Mehackit Atelier. So this is where all the project briefs are, where the task information is, and all the boring stuff, aka technical details, are put into video tutorials. They are easy to follow at your own pace, important for the learners, and it also frees time for the educator so they can concentrate on the core of their work, that is pedagogy, facilitating project. Programming itself takes place in a separate environment because we don't develop educational programming environments. Instead, we use a lot of open source environments, and we want to use tools that are used in the real world. There are somebody's tools out there, be it creative work or industrial work. This programming environment is called SonicPy, and it's used as an instrument for live coding music. So, as I said, we build on maker culture, making, sometimes called tinkering. Well, whatever you call those creative project works, well, it has a crucial benefit to education because it leaves enough space for you to iterate ideas and develop better practices for teaching. And the creativity part. Now, what did I say about baking a cake and making mistakes? Sylvia Libo Martinez said, I can actually invent what she said. Gladly, I'm happy to remember though what she said. She said that the most important thing about creativity is to trust the creative instinct of learners of different ages. So if you're worried about having enough technological skills, or even if you're worried about being creative enough to do something like this, that's not an obstacle because we all have the creative ideas and instincts in us. And it's always possible to help them grow. I think Sylvia would be proud of me now. Mehackit is always glad to collaborate. We're currently looking for opportunities to work in continuous professional development projects for teachers. And we're also interested in putting our classroom content into use in classrooms in different scales. So we can work with individual teachers and their classes. And also we're interested in applying Mehackit Atelier into a STEAM curriculum in a wider scale. So let's be in touch.
Cha, cha, cha. Good afternoon, Tallinn. Is everything okay? Slightly tired, you are yawning and so on. I try to be energetic. Coming from Helsinki, I'm running a non-profit called 100. We are operating, our headquarters is in Helsinki, but we are operating globally. And what is our goal? Is that our goal is to change education in every continent, in every country of the world by 2030. And I will try to explain you all of this in the following 20 minutes. And since 20 minutes is obviously a massively long time, I'm going to use the first 10 minutes in explaining what we do, and then the remaining 10 minutes on concentrating on the key learnings we've had. I've been visiting way too many education events during the past 5 years, and there's a lot of discussion about that we need to make the change happen in education. But I think that the key thing in all of these discussions is that we should start with one fundamental question, is that what is the purpose of education? And if you ask from me, the purpose of education is to help every child flourish in life, no matter what happens. So that's why the true value of the education is not defined when the child is leaving school. The true value is defined in 2030 when something unexpected happens. And as we all know, the world is changing. And when you are reading pretty much any estimation about the pace of change, people seem to think is that the pace of change will only accelerate. Meaning is that the pace of change will be faster in 2030 than it is now. And if and when we think that the current education model is slightly outdated, then the problem in here is that the gap will be even wider in 2030. So we need to do something, and we need to do fast. And I think that there's a massive amount of solutions already out there. But what we are saying is that education is a bit like Las Vegas. There's a saying is that whatever happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. And that's exactly how education happens. Whatever happens in a classroom stays in a classroom. There's a lot of beautiful things happening today, for example, in Estonia. That's the good news. The bad news is that no one outside of Estonia knows about them. And that's exactly the same with Finnish education or Swedish education or any. And that's the key problem we are trying to solve. And when you are trying to change the education, there's three fundamental questions. Number one is kind of like, why do you need to change the education? And I think that because the world is changing, education needs to change. Then the second question is, okay, what do you have to do? And if you're asking from me, you have to be adding 4 C's, 6 C's, you have to be adding STEAM, but STEAM is not enough. You have to be adding many other things as well. You have to change assessment, you have to take good care of the teachers, you have to understand that in continents like Africa, there are no teachers, and so on. So education is a really complex ecosystem. And changing a personal life, changing a company is difficult. Changing ecosystem is extremely complicated. And that's the key question that all the education events are lacking. How do you make the change happen at scale? And that's something that we want to solve, and that's something that we've been studying, trying to understand for the past 5 years. How can you make the change happen at scale? I'll show you a short video, then I explain our strategy, and then I'll explain the key findings.
The purpose of school is often debated, but it's difficult to argue that a key purpose of schools is to help every child flourish in life, no matter what happens. And when the world changes, schools have to adapt to keep up. Hundred believes that the best way to make change happen is through pedagogically sound, ambitious innovations. The good news is that the world is full of them. Unfortunately, though, people rarely know about them, and as such, they struggle to spread outside of their immediate environments. Our mission at 100 is to change this. By seeking and sharing inspiring innovations in K-12 education, we want to help schools change for the better. We select 100 innovations from all around the world annually, based on 3 selection criteria: innovativeness, impact, and scalability. After a rigorous selection process, all of the innovations are packaged and shared with the world for free. Our goal is to connect amazing global forerunners in education, from teachers to principals to policymakers, and be the world's leading expert in the field of education innovation. All for free.
What is our theory of change? Whenever we are looking for innovations, we start with one fundamental question: does this help every child flourish? And for example, if we take our values into the consideration, we think that, for example, the way many countries are assessing kids at the moment, standardized testing and so on, is not helping kids flourish. So we are not pro standardized testing, for example. And we try to identify that is this kind of like an innovation that is promoting education that we want to see. That's one of the key things. And for example, if you think some of the innovations that many billionaires at the moment in all over the world are promoting, actually some of them might be harmful. And if you are discussing, for example, about Bill Gates, he says that he's been investing roughly about 1 billion in improving education, and he thinks that some of that money has actually been harmful. So we have to be really kind of like precise and sensitive when we are trying to make the change happen in education in order not to mess up the whole system. We are looking for innovations. We are looking for innovations that are impactful and scalable. So there's two main criteria. Is that A, they have to work somewhere. They have to have evidence that this is leading into something great. And then the other key criteria is that it has to have potential to work in other countries and other continents. So those are the two key fundamental things. We are selecting 100 innovations annually, then we are having 100 spotlights, which is a collection of innovations, 10 innovations, either on a region or on a theme. I'll explain to you that in a minute. And then we have 100 open, where anybody, anywhere in the world can be promoting their own innovation. When we are having that, we have 100 community, which is full of people like forerunners, funders, innovators, ambassadors, students, who love to make the change happen, and they are promoting 100 innovations all over the world. We are also creating huge amount of media, success stories, webinars, events, and so on, in order to promote these things. We are creating 100 Connect, where we are connecting the best innovators in the world together with the best funders in the world, and we try to facilitate an environment where anybody can be investing money on the best education innovators globally in a safe way. We are doing massive amount of research. We want to understand what are the key obstacles in education at the moment. How do you kind of like change that one? And then we are creating a small amount of own innovations if we have a feeling that there's something lacking from the market. What have we done during the past 4 years? We have been studying roughly about 3,800 innovations from 150 countries. And we have fairly good overview about the things that are happening at the moment globally. The ones we are selecting, we are packaging them in a beautiful way so that anybody, anywhere can easily understand what is the essence of those innovations. And like mentioned, we are selecting 100 innovations annually. We are organizing 100 Innovation Summit annually in Helsinki, where we are inviting top innovators, top funders, and top researchers to discuss about the scaling of innovations. We are organizing events practically every week in all continents where innovators are sharing the know-how. We have 100 ambassadors at the moment in 75 countries who are more than happy to promote the best education innovations globally. We are creating huge amount of news. We launched yesterday a spotlight on digital well-being, where the essence of that one is that we try to identify innovations that are promoting digital well-being, and we are doing that together with Oyster from US. We organized another, we published another spotlight in Taiwan last week, where we are concentrating on employability skills. We are having regional spotlights at the moment in Helsinki, in Australia, in Taiwan, in Switzerland, in Chile, in Pittsburgh, and so on. And there's a lot of beautiful things doing. We are doing massive amount of research. The newest one will be conducted within the following 6 months, and it will be concentrating on what are the key obstacles on making scaling happen. And we are doing that together with middle schools in the US. And at the moment, we have roughly about 200,000 educators from all continents going through the innovations, helping them spread, and so forth. And we've been doing this for 4 or 5 years, and we are a non-profit organization, and I'm going to share you the key findings in less than 10 minutes. So first of all, you have to understand is that making any innovation spread is extremely complicated. because of the classic curve created by Everett M. Rogers and so on. In education, it's even more difficult because education is happening in silos. Every country is a silo, every city is a silo, every country is a silo. So it's really complicated to make innovations happen. People quite often say is that we need to have new ideas. But I would say is that that's not the key problem we have at the moment. There's massive amount of beautiful innovations that can make the change happen. So there is no massive shortage of great education innovations and so on. So that's not the key problem. And actually they come from anywhere. We quite often think that for example, Finland being a great education ecosystem, or Estonia being even better than the Finnish system at the moment based on PISA, we think that those are the countries with the best education innovations. I'd say that's not the case quite often. There are countries where there's massive problems, like US, and that's why the ecosystem might be broken, but the quality of the innovations is actually quite good. And quite often we think that we are really good, we should be exporting a lot of Finnish know-how into Africa. And I would almost say is that the situation should be other way around, because the fact that Africa, for example, is lacking teachers. Sub-Saharan Africa needs more than 30 million teachers during the following 10 years, and no one knows where to get them. And that's why the urge of creating something new is massive. So I would say that there's a lot of great education innovations coming from places like Nairobi. So we have to be really open for that one. And actually identifying these innovations is not difficult. It's actually quite easy. We are doing it and so on, so we know that one. The key problem is to making them scale, making them spread. And one of the key problems in here is that most of the innovations in any industry, they spread bottom up, like Uber or Airbnb or whatever. In education, it's complicated because many of the teachers don't have freedom to use the innovations they like. And that's one of the problems. There's gatekeepers all over the world. The word innovation itself is complicated because many teachers hate the word innovations in every country of the world because they have a feeling is that something new that doesn't work. They love the idea of coming up with new ideas, but they are not excited about the word innovation. And when you identify what are the education innovations that do spread, they are the ones that have evidence and they are something that teachers love. The reason why Kahoot is one of the most widely spread education innovations is the reason that actually teachers love it. And so on. So we have to understand this one. So if you want your innovation to scale, it has to be a hit somewhere. You cannot scale before there's a genuine excitement in one place. But even in those cases, the key problem in here is that it needs to be packaged extremely well in order to make the spreading happen. And you need to have a sustainable funding model, even if you are a non-profit. And the last one is that when we identify great education innovations, quite often the best ones are actually not having the best resources. So what is the key problem? I've been studying innovations all my life, and if you study the whole process of education innovations, it's consisting of 4 stages. First of all, there's idea. Most of the ideas don't work. Innovations are the ideas that do work. So you have to have an idea, you have to test it, you have to have the track record, you have to have the excitement, and only then you can call it an innovation. Then you have to start spreading it, and then you have to implement that well. And as we all know, every country is different, every context is different. And if I would simplify this as much as I can, the biggest problem in education is the spreading. 90% of the education startups, edtechs, non-profits, and so on, they don't have the resources to make the spreading happen. They don't happen magically. You have to be pushing them day in, day out. And the more I look about this one, is that you cannot force any innovation spread. You have to have the genuine excitement there. And what is our strategy? What I think is that what is the best way to make the change happen? Is that we want to identify the ones that are already out there, that are working and that have potential to work globally, and then we want to help them spread. We want to help them to get funding, we want to connect them with the best implementers and so on, and we want to do all of this for free. Because I think that there's nothing more important than fixing the education for every kid. Because like mentioned, the world is changing extremely fast, and unless we react fast, nothing will happen. And the more I look about it, I think that this is the only way to make the change happen in every country of the world by 2030. Thanks for this, and if you have any great ideas that you think that we should be promoting, for example in Estonia, please do let us know. We are more than happy to do that for free. Thanks. See you.
Thank you, and this is for you. Thank you, Saku. And if you have any questions for Saku, Sanna, Natalia, me, or Taavet, you are all very much welcome to join us on the Q&A session, which is downstairs. You just go down the stairs, and there's the TransferWise area. So all questions are very much welcome there. And then we will continue the education panel on the yellow stage, which is also downstairs, where we will be, or other people will be discussing the future of AI in the field of education. And then probably the most interesting part of the day will be the education fund pitches, also on yellow stage. So stay tuned with the future of education. Thank you.